Chapter 1 is all about beginnings and who were the first peoples to live in the Americas. It also goes into talk about the maize revolution and the development of corn and how maize transferred into corn and how it became the staple in American lives. Then we talk a little bit about the collapse of urban centers and some of these major Native American cultures that we had here, even in North America, and their disappearance. And then Eurasia and Africa versus North America. These major civilizations of North America, how are they different from those from Europe, Asia, and Africa? So we start off talking about the first peoples. Where did these first Americans come from and how did they live? So your book starts out 3 million years ago, talking about emergence of humans in Africa about 3 million years ago. And then how, evolution came changing those first humans, evolving into what we have today. And then about 40,000 years ago, we have the Paleolithic Revolution. And with the Paleolithic Revolution, this period began, and this is when humans devised simple tools, inaugurating life based on hunting and gathering. And once they started hunting and gathering, they're going to chase those big herds of animals across the Bering Strait into Alaska. So it's believed that the first Americans, came over on a land bridge and following the mammoths, and that land bridge is connected, parts of Russia to Alaska. And when that crossing happened, they were chasing big mammals like mammoths, and so they were probably hunting for those mammals. That's what brought them here, develop, their migrating herds, just following them. And so that's how the first humans are believed to have gotten here. There's also some evidence that they might have also built some primitive canoes or primitive boats and sailed along the coastlines in order to get down into some of North America outside of Canada, but starting to get down on the coast of North America. Obviously the woolly mammoth and those big mammals are going to die out, go through some climate changes, and last mini ice age happened about 10,000 years ago. So once that is gone, you're going to have the absence of those big mammals. We have those people that are here that have been here, and then also geographic isolation. That Bering Strait, it's going to melt that glacier, that land bridge. Those glaciers are going to melt and cover it up with water so that you can't have an easy crossing like that anymore. And that brings us to the Archaic period. And how did those people survive without those big mammals? They're going to have to turn to a different food alternative, start hunting smaller game and hunting more often because you're not hunting big mammoths anymore, and moving to a sedentary community where you're not migrating all the time. Sometimes, you might change from season to season, but you're staying in one location for part of the year and developing crops and then moving to a different location during the other parts of the year. I mentioned the Paleolithic Revolution, when humans started devising simple tools and started inaugurating life based on hunting and gathering. From that, you move into an archaic culture, and that's this period of time between the Paleolithic Revolution and the Neolithic Revolution. These people have aspects of, hunting and gathering, but then during the Neolithic Revolution, this is the transition from a hunter-gatherer economy to one that's based mostly on the cultivation of crops. Between that transition from hunting and gathering to cultivation of crop society, we have the archaic cultures. Kind of steals from both Paleolithic and Neolithic civilizations. But with the cultivation of crops, you're going to lead to sustainable communities due to the surplus in food supply, and that's going to allow for the growth of North American cities and empires. And each community is going to form and develop their own language, their own culture, their own customs. They did connect with other communities using trade routes. Just like those trade routes that were used in Eurasia and Africa, In the Americas, North and South America, they're going to have trade routes as well. You have Native Americans that are living in Mesoamerica, which is present-day Mexico. They began domesticating wild forms of squash, bean, and maize. And these three crops, or the three sisters, are going to provide this area and these societies with enough food surplus to actually establish cities and have permanent settlements and develop civilizations that are going to quickly extend their cultural influence across the region. Because these people are able to stay in one place for, long periods of time, you're going to see a formation of social hierarchies. So you're no longer everyone's equal in your tribe. You actually have someone that's over your tribe, like a chief. And then you're going to have the elders that are underneath that chief. And then it's going to work its way down to the lowest person on the totem pole. So you have these formations of social hierarchies, like the one at Cahokia. Cahokia was the hub of Mississippian culture, so this is the Mississippi River Valley. This happened around 1000, so about, a little over 1,000 years ago. There was this huge city, and it was a major center of trade, shops, religion, politics. They built these huge earthworks. They had class divisions. They practiced human sacrifice and astronomy. But then slowly, these mound building cultures are going to begin to disappear. And around 1200, these civilizations and cities are abandoned, and we don't know exactly why they're abandoned. You can see here, this is where Cahokia was. And then you've got some others like the Hopewell civilizations and the Anasazi are out here in the southwest. But something happened. The reason, it's been debated why these cities are abandoned, but some historians believe environmental factors or disease, malnutrition may have been the cause of the demise of these different civilizations. And with these civilizations, when they disappeared, you know what else is going to disappear? Trade networks and how they communicated with each other, and these trade networks that they had set up, and all these civilizations and these cultures are going to be lost when these big urban centers begin to collapse. The only lasting empires are going to be those in Mesoamerica, in the present-day Mexico. That's a picture of the Anasazi in the southwest. They built into the mountains, into the cliffs there for protection, but you can still go and find these whole cities, and they're just abandoned. Like I said, with the loss of these civilizations and disappearing, those trade networks are lost, and slowly the flow of trade is going to begin to disappear. North America became what the explorers found in the 1500s, which was just small bands of tribes. Sometimes they formed alliances, but for the most part, these tribes are going to keep to themselves. And like I said, the only lasting empires are going to be those like the Inca and the Mayan, that are found in Central and South America. The Neolithic Revolution is going to sweep through Eurasia and Africa, and by 1500 it had nearly covered Europe, Asia, and Africa, all three continents. Cultivation of varied crops are going to allow for more sustainable civilizations, but when you have these civilizations, you're going to have a lot more outbreak of plague. Is going to be more rampant. That's often going to sweep through Eurasia, keeping those populations in check, so they're not able to grow too much. Demographic and sickness is going to be some consequences of these developed civilizations, just like we have now. West Africa is going to develop a little bit differently than Eurasia. Cities are going to spring up due to an increase in trade on the West African coast, but most of the people are going to stay herding cattle. Along with food and other goods, slaves are also going to be traded. And this isn't slavery like we know it today. We'll get a little bit more into the difference between West African slavery and African slavery itself compared to how the Portuguese tainted that slavery and introduced the American system of slavery. Some parts of Africa are going to remain immune to invaders due to endemic diseases that keep their enemies out. China, on the other hand, literally walled themselves in, the Great Wall of China, to keep out invaders, and their population is going to reach over 100 million by 1500. In Europe, things are going to be in a frenzy during this time. The population was so big that when a poor harvest or grain shipments did not arrive, you're going to have hunger riots break out. People are going to become upset, and it's going to put the political order out of balance. Overpopulation led to certain groups of people being expelled from such areas, such as the Jews are going to be forced out of Spain and Portugal during this time. You're going to have other groups that are targeted and chased from their homelands and have to find, a new home. But many people began moving from city to city in search of a better life. When you're run out of food in London, you're going to travel to where maybe they still have some food and travel south down to Oxford. So you have people are really looking for that better life. And with new inventions such as the printing press, you have new ideas, and advances are going to begin to weaken the political order. So really this is going to put us at the rise of nation states, and you're going to have Americans versus Europeans right on the eve of contact during this chapter.